My name is Claire, 32, and I've learned the painful truth that family doesn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes, the best revenge is letting people face the fallout of their own actions. It began at what was meant to be a joyful event. My younger sister, Maris, 29, had just bought her first home with her husband, Henry, and they were throwing a housewarming party. Maris, the family's golden child, married young, had 2 kids by 25, and always seemed to escape blame for her reckless financial choices. However, was the family letdown. Despite my successful career as a financial advisor, owning my own home and working hard to buy a cozy vacation cabin, they didn't care. My life with my dog Finn and my independence meant nothing to them. I arrived at the party with a fine bottle of wine and a gift card for Maris's new home. About 30 guests, family, friends, and neighbors were there, and the party was lively. Maris greeted me warmly, and for a moment I thought our bond was strengthening. I was wrong. An hour in, Maris clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here," she said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "But there's something else I need to address." She looked right at me, and my heart sank. "Claire, can you come here?" The crowd parted as I approached. My parents stood beside her, their faces cold. "Claire," Maris continued, "you know Henry and I are struggling with the kids and the new mortgage." I nodded, uneasy. "We've talked as a family," she said, glancing at our parents, "and we think it'd be kind of you to let us use your vacation cabin. It'd be great for the kids to make memories there." It sounded like a done deal, but I'd never been asked. "You want me to give up my cabin?" I asked, stunned. Mom cut in. "It's the right thing for the family, Claire." The room went silent. 30 pairs of eyes watched me. Dad stepped forward. "You barely use it. Vacation homes are for families, not for you and that dog." "His name is Finn," I snapped. "I worked hard for that cabin. It's mine." Maris smirked. "Don't be greedy, Claire. Think of my kids, your niece and nephew." "They can rent other vacation spots," I said, trying to stay calm. Mom's mask fell. "You don't even have kids," she shouted. "Why do you need a family cabin?" Dad's words were worse. "You're just a barren waste, hoarding what could help real family." The word barren hit like a slap. They knew my infertility struggles but didn't care. Maris grinned cruelly. "Time the family failure steps up," she sneered. "Maybe this'll make you worth something." I stood frozen, trembling with fury and humiliation as my family publicly shredded me in front of a room full of people. A few glanced away awkwardly, while others stared with morbid curiosity, yet not a single person stepped up to support me. "No," I forced out through clenched teeth. "It's my property and I'm not handing it over." That's when Dad snapped, his hand lashed out, delivering a sharp backhand that sent me stumbling. The crack of the slap echoed in the stunned silence. Then, to my disbelief, applause broke out. Not everyone joined in. Some looked shocked and uneasy, but enough people clapped to fill the air with sound. Maris glowed with triumph as if she'd claimed a prize. Mom gave a nod of agreement. Dad adjusted his shirt like he'd completed a necessary task. I pressed my hand to my stinging cheek, staring at the family that had betrayed me. The hurt cut deeper than the physical pain. "Fine," I said quietly, my voice eerily steady. "I'll remember this." I left without another word, abandoning the gift I'd brought and any hope of their unconditional love. The drive home was a blur. Finn greeted me at the door with his usual enthusiasm, and I buried my face in his coat, letting the tears flow. My cheek throbbed, my heart ached, and I felt more isolated than ever. But as the shock faded, a new emotion took hold. Cold, calculated resolve. I'd always been the family's responsible one. While Maris stumbled through poor financial choices, I'd quietly stepped in. I co-signed her first car loan when her credit faltered. I lent her money for crises more times than I could count. I even chipped in for her house down payment, a secret she swore to keep. More crucially, I'd managed my parents' finances for 5 years. Dad asked me to take over when Mom's memory started slipping, and he struggled to cope. I organized their accounts, set up retirement funds, handled taxes, and automated their bills. Mom's condition had worsened, but she still had lucid days and valued my help. They fully trusted me with their money. Maris knew nothing of it. As a financial expert, I knew money meant control, and control could be revoked as easily as it was given. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started making calls. The first was to the bank holding Maris's mortgage, which I'd helped secure by co-signing and contributing to the down payment. I explained recent family issues involving financial coercion and asked about my options. "I understand your concerns, Ms. Thompson," the officer said. "You can't just step away as a co-signer, but you can request a loan reassessment due to changed circumstances. If the primary borrowers can't qualify a loan, we'd explore modifications, or if needed, call the loan." Exactly what I wanted. The second call was to relinquish my power of attorney over my parents' finances. I'd kept meticulous records. What I uncovered was disturbing. Dad had secretly funneled money to Maris for years, funds meant for Mom's care, totaling over $30,000 in unpaid loans. Worse, he'd opened credit accounts in Mom's name without her consent. With her fading cognition, I documented it all. Screenshots, statements, emails, legally obtained as their financial agent before stepping down. The third call went to Adult Protective Services. "I'd like to report suspected financial elder abuse," I told the intake worker, providing evidence of money being siphoned from a vulnerable woman, including unauthorized credit use. "This is serious," they said. "We'll launch an investigation and freeze the accounts to stop further harm." The fourth call was to Maris's employer. She worked as a bookkeeper, and her boss, Ms. Benton, valued financial integrity. A quick public records check showed recent debt judgments against Maris, unreported during her hiring. I avoided making accusations. I only asked Ms. Benton if she realized Maris had concealed financial rulings that might impact her bonding insurance, a necessity for her position overseeing the company's accounts. The fifth call was to the IRS. Dad's unpaid loans to Maris, exceeding $30,000, were technically considered taxable income since forgiven debts surpass a specific limit. If Maris took this money without reporting it, it could be tax fraud. I submitted comprehensive proof of every transaction, loan, and gift beyond the yearly cap, all legally obtained during my role as Mom and Dad's financial representative. But I had more to do. The sixth call went to Child Protective Services. Let me be clear, I'd never fabricate claims about child safety. I didn't need to. Maris's social media held a wealth of worrying details she'd posted herself, like pictures of her kids in risky scenarios, updates about leaving them unsupervised, and mentions of using medication to help them sleep so she could enjoy adult time. All this was publicly accessible. I collected the evidence and requested a welfare visit. Henry's boss received the final call. Henry worked in construction where his employer enforced strict rules on domestic abuse, affecting insurance and site security. Photos of my injured face paired with statements from compassionate party guests disturbed by Dad's behavior highlighted a serious violence concern. I never pointed fingers at Henry. I simply shared facts about the family environment and let the company judge if it met their policies. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Maris called, shouting. "What did you do?" she yelled into the phone. "The bank's demanding our loan payment in 30 days or they'll start foreclosure." "I withdrew as co-signer," I replied softly. "It's my legal option. You can't do this. We'll lose everything." "You should have thought twice before publicly shaming me and claiming my property," I said. "Claire, please," she begged, her tone turning to false kindness. "I'm sorry about the party. It got intense. Don't hurt my kids over this." "Your kids? The ones you wanted vacation time for? Maybe they should ask Grandpa where Grandma's healthcare funds disappeared to." Silence hung in the air. "What do you mean?" Maris asked, her voice wavering. "Adult Protective Services is looking into Dad's financial dealings," I said with a smirk. "Taking from someone with dementia is a big deal, it seems." A chill ran through my veins. "What do you mean?" I asked. "They planned it," she said. "I caught Maris, your mom, and your dad discussing it before the event began, and Maris mentioned she'd been plotting to claim your cabin for months. She said you were too selfish to hand it over easily, so they needed to apply family pressure with an audience." You wouldn't have a way out. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. They meant to trap me. Maris insisted that a public showdown would leave me too humiliated to refuse. She laughed about it, Claire, Nina revealed. She commented on how you always fold under scrutiny and would likely surrender the keys to escape further conflict. I felt sick. The whole occasion was a calculated strike to exploit what they saw as my vulnerability. They invited 30 people to witness what they anticipated would be my shame and surrender. There's more, Nina continued. After you left, Maris bragged about softening you up for months with tales of financial hardship. She said she'd been tracking every instance you helped her financially, planning to use it as evidence that you always yield to family needs. Evidence for what? I asked. She was ready to take you to court if public humiliation failed. She believed your years of support meant you owed the family more. She thought she could convince a judge to force you to transfer the cabin under a family obligation ruling. The boldness was staggering. Maris had been building a legal case to take my assets, twisting my kindness against me. Why tell me now? I pressed. Nina paused. Because Maris called me yesterday. She's desperate, Claire. She's thinking of suing you for deliberately ruining her family. She thinks this is your revenge, not a result of their illegal actions. I don't know her next move, she added, but she's digging into your income, job, and routines. She's also trying to turn mutual friends against you, painting you as a cruel figure harming innocent kids out of spite. This was classic Maris, playing the victim while dodging accountability. But now I had a heads up and I intended to use it. Nina, I need a favor, I said. If Maris reaches out again, record the call. Can you do that? I suppose so. Why? Because Maris is about to find out I'm far better at this than she thinks. A shiver coursed through my blood. What do you mean? I asked. They orchestrated it, she replied. I overheard Maris, your mother, and your father discussing it before the gathering began, and Maris noted she'd been scheming to take your cabin for months. She claimed you were too self-absorbed to give it up freely, so they had to apply family leverage with an audience present. You'd have no escape. The deceit ran deeper than I'd realized. They aimed to corner me. Maris asserted that a public confrontation would leave me too mortified to resist. She chuckled about it, Claire, Nina disclosed. She remarked on how you always buckle under public scrutiny and would likely hand over the keys to avoid further trouble. I felt queasy. The whole event was a deliberate ambush designed to exploit my supposed weakness. They gathered 30 people to witness what they expected would be my embarrassment and submission. There's more, Nina added. After you departed, Maris bragged about prepping you for months with tales of financial woes. She said she'd been logging every time you aided her financially, intending to use it as proof you always yield to family demands. Proof for what? I pressed. She planned to drag you to court if public shame didn't work. She believed your years of support meant you owed the family ongoing help. She thought she could sway a judge to mandate transferring the cabin under a family duty ruling. The nerve was astounding. Maris had been building a legal claim to seize my belongings, turning my generosity into a weapon. Why reveal this now? I inquired. Nina paused. Because Maris called me yesterday. She's desperate, Claire. She's considering a lawsuit against you for deliberately shattering her family. She thinks this is your spite, not a consequence of their wrongdoing. I don't know her plans, she continued, but she's probing your earnings, job, and whereabouts. She's also trying to rally mutual friends, labeling you a cold monster harming innocent kids out of vengeance. This was pure Maris, playing the martyr while avoiding blame. But now I had a warning and I intended to act on it. Nina, I need your help, I said. If Maris contacts you again, record the call. Can you do that? I suppose. Why? Because Maris is about to discover I'm far superior at this game. And I was relaxing in my retreat cabin with Finn, sipping wine and gazing at the mountain sunset. I'd also started seeing Luke, a kind man I met through a hiking group who found my self-reliance appealing, not threatening. Maris called me repeatedly, so did Dad. Even relatives who witnessed my shame began reaching out, worried about family harmony and reconciliation. I blocked them all. Mom was the only one I stayed connected with, visiting her regularly at the care facility. She had more good days than bad, and on those days she thanked me for shielding her from Dad's financial misuse, though she was heartbroken by his betrayal. "I always knew you were the resilient one," she said during one visit. "I just wish I'd had the courage to see it sooner." 3 months after the gathering, Maris showed up at my place. She looked dreadful, thin, exhausted, with dark shadows under her eyes. Her car was a worn-out Honda I didn't recognize, likely all they could manage after losing their better vehicles to repossession. "Claire, please," she whispered as I opened the door. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say," I replied, starting to shut the door. "Wait," she said, pressing her hand against it. "I know you're upset, but my kids, they don't deserve this. They'll be homeless." "Your children are blameless," I acknowledged, which is why CPS is ensuring they're in a safe space with parents who can support them. "The parenting classes are humiliating," she added, tears falling. "And Henry can't get a job because of his record. We're losing it all." "You've already lost everything," I pointed out. "You lost it when you chose to confront me publicly over my property. It was just words, Claire. People speak out when stressed." "Dad struck me," I countered, "and you clapped. You stood there cheering as your father hit me because I wouldn't give you what wasn't yours." Maris looked down at her feet. "I know that was wrong." "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to minimize this. You orchestrated my public disgrace. You called me a family failure. You agreed when Dad labeled me worthless. You applauded his attack, and now you want my help because facing the fallout is hard? What can I do to fix this?" she pleaded urgently. I pondered her question for a while. "Nothing," I said at last. "There's nothing you can do. You can't erase your words. You can't undo the humiliation. You can't reverse the assault. And you can't deny what you all showed me about yourselves." "But we're family." "No," I cut her off. "Family doesn't treat each other like you did. Family doesn't conspire against one another. Family doesn't physically harm each other. Family doesn't cheer when someone's hurt. Claire, I'm begging you." "Are you begging now?" I noted. "But where was your humility when you demanded my retreat? Where was your concern for my family when you insulted me before 30 people? Maris collapsed into sobs on my doorstep. A part of me pitied her, recalling the little sister I knew before she grew entitled and cold, but most of me remembered standing in that room, hand on my stinging cheek as people reveled in my shame. "I'm sorry," she said through tears. "I'm sure you are," I replied. "You're sorry about the consequences. You're sorry your plan failed. You're sorry you're losing your home, job, and luxury. But are you sorry for how you treated me? Do you regret years of exploiting my kindness? Are you sorry you stood by when Dad called me barren?" She looked up and I saw regret in her eyes.